Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today I have a very special guest, the superintendent of Waxahachie ISD, Dr. Hollingsworth. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, DV. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for coming on. And as an added bonus, I have Ryan Calden, who is WISD CFO. He's the money man. And it's good to have him on because we're going to be looking at money and figures and stuff. And hopefully you'll be able to gain information so you can be informed. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you very much for having me.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. So, Dr. Hollingsworth, this is budget time. We talked last year during the budget, and you kind of explained the stuff. Can you kind of give me like an overview of the budget in general, what you were looking for this year?
Yeah. So, I mean, the name of the game for us right now is growth, and how it is that we adjust and deal with more students each year, and accommodating for that. That's always kind of forefront of our mind. And then one of our highest priorities for our board really was to increase and improve our fund balance, which is basically our savings account, to accommodate and to prepare for more growth. And so we know that's coming. And so it's just really wise for us to have, just like you do in your own home budget, it's wise for us to not only plan for what's going on right now, but to plan for, future growth with a good savings account.
Yeah, I saw that definitely that there was going to be some more added to the fund balance. Every year we go through this, as far as taxes and budget and things can get emotional, but I like to put information out there. Ryan, what kind of increases that did you see at, trying to pay the bills? What kind of increases did you see, and what was the major expenses that hit you last year?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. So we've been seeing some inflationary pressures all over the board. One of the biggest areas that hit us hard was in our maintenance accounts. Between transportation and support services, we've seen fuel prices go up significantly, just like the average taxpayer is seeing for their personal vehicle. We've seen it not only in fuel, but we've seen it just with ordering goods and commodities. Not only are the lead times getting longer, but the actual purchase prices have really skyrocketed. One example, a school bus, a 77-passenger school buses, which is generally what we traditionally buy. We've seen those prices go from about $100,000 per bus 2 or 3 years ago to about $145,000 now per school bus. And so that really puts a strain on all the things that we try to do with the district funds when you're spending that much more on just a school bus.
That is a lot, and when I talk to the city entities about the budget and they talk about like fire trucks, now they're 1.7 million, I believe, and they're a year out. So there's a lot going on with everything costing more. And I guess it's affecting you guys as well. So one of the things that I saw in the budget was a 2% raise. Can you speak on that raise?
Absolutely. So one thing that we do every year is we go through and we look at our salary, our pay scales, and we compare them not only with other school districts, but with other entities within Waxahachie and Ellis County, because we're trying to attract top talent. And the only way you're going to do that is making sure that you're paying a competitive salary. We don't necessarily look to be the market leader in every step and every pay scale, but we have to be competitive. So one thing that we did do for this year is we're looking at a 2% increase for all staff throughout the district. We know that they've been hit hard with inflation and with other job openings. And so the temptation is out there to look at other openings and compare pay. And we want to retain our good staff. We have a really quality, not only teaching staff, but support staff that help our students learn and every day when they're in the classroom. And so we want to take care of them and keep them here. We wish it could be a whole lot more than 2%, but with the money that we have, that's about what we were able to swing and make sure that we could sustain that long term.
Yeah, and for our board, that really was our second priority. So our first priority was we want to boost up our savings account just to make sure our fund balance, to make sure that we're prepared for the future growth. And then secondly, what can we do for our staff?
Okay. Now, as far as revenues, discussing revenues, what kind of revenues did we see this year, come in?
So this year, obviously, we had a significant amount of revenues coming in from property taxes, because we all remember, for the last foreseeable or the couple of years that we can all remember most recently, those property values have really been increasing a lot. The state does have a mechanism to help encourage a reduction in that property tax rate, but we all know that our values have been really increasing. So property tax revenue has been up. We anticipated that as we were going into the year last year. We talked a little bit about we expected districts' local revenue to make up about 69 to 70% of all of our general fund revenue. Excuse me. So we realized more students in attendance this year than we anticipated for last year. So that was a really good sign for the district. Not only does it reinforce our growth, but it also helps that bottom line with the fund balance. We were able to realize more revenue than we thought we were going to, and turn around and help put some of that into fund balance. A good bit of that went to go ahead and fund the operations of the district for last year. But a lot of that is going to be dedicated towards fund balance, and we're going to continue that going forward because, as Dr. Hollingsworth mentioned, we are opening some new schools in the next couple of years, and we're going to have resources for the people and the expense that it's going to take to open those schools. And that can't just all come in one year. We've got to plan for it and make a good, solid investment going forward.
Yeah, I definitely want to speak on that because bonds passed and there's a lot going on with WISD. So I want to get into that. Just for somebody that doesn't know, I know that school funding can be very complicated. There's only a few people in the world who can make it out. And it's an Einstein kind of thing. So how does the budget revenue break down for how do you receive your revenue? Is it property tax, state tax? I'm sorry, not state tax, but state revenues and then federal. How does that break down?
Great question. So to not get overly Einstein in it, because you're right, it is super complicated. A majority of our budget is made up of two factors. One of it is local revenue, and that's going to be from property taxes. And the other one is state revenue, and that's from student attendance. And so when we talk about student attendance, we're talking about the number of students that we have enrolled in our district and how often they actually show up every day. And so that's what the state of Texas funds public education based off of, is average daily attendance. So those two play against each other. As local property values increase, the state revenue that you've earned actually decreases, even if the number of students and daily attendance increases for your district. So within the state funding formula, we are afforded so much revenue per student. However much we get from local, the remainder is funded from the state. And so if we had a significant drop in local property values, the state would pick up the revenue that they send us. Another component that we do have is federal revenues in the general fund. To be really honest, it's not a significant player. It accounts for about $2 million per year of our budget. Our budget generally is about 110 to 120 million in the general fund. And that 2%, I mean, that 2 million is relatively flat. It doesn't move a whole lot, maybe 100,000 here or there. It's not one that we traditionally do a whole lot of budgeting off of because it's generally right around that $2 million mark every year.
And I'll add in there, DV, really the only way we're able to kind of get ahead, if you will, like we were able to put money into fund balance, the way we're able to do that is through really conservative projections for student attendance. And that's what we benefited from. So we projected and budgeted based on conservative projections for attendance, and then we were able to exceed those projections by increased student enrollment and kids coming to school more. And so that helped us, and that's how we were able to ever make any headway in that funding formula.
And it is complicated in how it goes down. Now I know that this is last year, I believe, of ESSER funds. How do you plan on using that, Dr. Hollingsworth?
Yeah, so our plans currently related to ESSER funds. We have to look at what's remaining, and we're still kind of in that decision-making process, but we'll look at the remaining funds because they have to be spent by September of 24. So we'll look at the remaining funds we have, and we'll decide. Now, some of it goes toward learning resources programs that we have to pay for. Some of it goes for additional tutoring hours that we've paid staff. And so we just have to look and see how much is going to be available for that second purpose primarily.
Mr. Calden, this is a question for you. How much did the Waxahachie ISD, but how much was the budget this year, and how much did it grow compared to last year?
So our budget this year was right about $109 million in the general fund. And for next year, the budget is looking at about $119 million. So we're looking about a $10 million increase, and that is 100% driven off of additional students coming into our district.
Yeah, there is a lot. Now, this question is for Dr. Hollingsworth. You were talking about the student growth. It was, what is it, 11,000? I think you were telling me, or something. You broke 11,000 when you first got here. You were talking about breaking 10, I believe it was.
That's right.
And now you're 11. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, all the research I did when I was studying to do my interview, to come and interview to be superintendent, all the research I did showed that we were around 94 to 9,500 students, and that was accurate. And so when I walked in the door, I got here in August officially. I started doing some work in July of 21, but officially started in August of 21. In September of 21, we celebrated our 10,000th student. A little girl over at Waxahachie High School. And then this last week, you probably saw online, we celebrated our 11,000th student, a third grade little boy at Wedgeworth Elementary. And so he was very excited, and he has twin brothers. One twin brother was they're in the fourth grade. This little boy's in the third grade. One twin brother was 10,999, and then the other one was 11,001. So he was the lucky guy.
Oh wow, that's cool. That's cool that you celebrated with that kid. I'm sure he had a great time there. So this question goes to Ryan. One of the things that when you look at you have to report on every year by law, you have to report your tax information, that tax number. So every year there's a number there, and when you look at that site, it says there is a 20% increase in taxes. I actually pulled up that window. I wanted to, because this is something that, and a lot of times it gets out there in public, and people do a lot of things with it. So this year, what I did see was that you guys kind of posted some stuff on it. Can you, I don't know if it's there it is, Sean. You guys kind of posted some stuff on it, like to add to it. So it says that there's a 20.43% raising of taxes on maintenance operations, right? But then, that would be, if you went to the no new revenue rate, that's something that's often thrown about. How would that affect how you did the numbers, Ryan? And then I want to talk about the other effects with Dr. Hollingsworth.
Absolutely. So the no new revenue, essentially what it's trying to tell you is that to raise no additional dollar from what we have today, this is what your tax rate would need to be. And so all of the required wording is based off of the district adopting a no new revenue rate. But as we were just talking about with student growth, no new revenue means exactly that. No additional teachers, no additional staff, no pay increases, no ability to deal with the inflation that all of our departments are dealing with right now with securing goods and services. And so no new revenue really in a growing district is not a viable option long term to be able to address the needs that you need to address when you're educating students.
And from everything that you're telling me, everything is costing more, and everything is there's so many things that are moving up. Now, Dr. Hollingsworth, taxes are something that comes up every year, and even though you don't do the politics of it, you are running the district day-to-day operations. Do you think that you're being a good steward to the people's money, and what do you tell people that are struggling with taxes? What do you tell them what you're doing as far as the day-to-day side to save them money?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'd say to that. Number one, every one of us benefits from having a well-educated student population. All of us benefit from that. And it is the system in the state of Texas, for as long as I've been alive, this is the system that we have in place. And I'm very thankful that I'm a public school product. I know Mr. Calden's a public school product. I don't know if you are. I bet you are.
I am.
Yeah. And so the first thing I say is I'm thankful that somebody paid for my education. There were people who were supporting my education. I was a Boyd Yellow Jacket up northwest of Fort Worth, and people supported my education back in the 80s, and I'm grateful for that. The other thing that I would say is I realize that people are struggling. I live here too, and I just filled up my tank on the way home, and I know how much those things cost. One thing that I also try to educate folks on is there are several mechanisms that are that the state requires that people are not aware of. One of the things that when you talk about property values, so property values is a real controversial thing. And so everybody beats up your county appraisal districts. I read the same thing you do online and constantly griping, complaining about the appraisal districts. Most people don't know that the state comptroller's office performs on every school district in the state of Texas. They perform what is called a property value study. The property value study is to make sure that the property values are within a 10% range of what the comptroller's office says they should be. So in a fast-growing county like ours, what that means is that if the local appraisal district does not raise the values high enough, they will actually penalize the school districts. Let me say that again. The comptroller's office does a property value study, and what they do in essence, they force the hand of the appraisal districts to be sure that they are raising the values high enough. And if you don't, they will penalize the districts in that process. And people have no idea that that's happening, and it's driven by the state government on your local appraisal districts.
So what is the tax rate this year? I have this screen up so that people could see how the tax rate kind of breaks down M&O and INS, I think it was, but this one is talking about M&O, how that breaks down. What is the tax rate proposed this year?
The tax rate proposed for this year total is $1.1704. That's a decrease right now for the year that we're in, the 22-23 school year. That's $1.3268, I believe, is the final number. M&O is maintenance and operations, so that rate is solely dedicated to the ongoing operations of the district. That's utilities, that's salaries, that's buses and fuel, and all the things that go into operating a school district. And so that rate is projected to go down about 18 cents, and that is due in large part to the work of the legislature during the second session to provide additional funds with property tax compression. The other side of that tax rate is the INS side, or interest and sinking. Those funds are only used to pay down the existing bonded debt of the district. They can't be used for maintenance and operations side. All they can do is go to pay the outstanding principal and interest of debt, along with some of your annual service cost of debt. That rate, we had an election in May, and the community supported the bond proposals, 3 of the 4. And so with an additional authorization of $575 million in debt, that rate did go up 2.9 cents. And so we promised the voters that it would go up 3 cents or less. And so it's going up from 38.39, so 0.3839 per hundred, to 41.20 per hundred. And so overall, taxpayers are seeing a 15, almost 16 cent tax decrease in the rate for the 23-24 school year.
Yes, the rate did go down. I did see that. Now, one of the things the reason why I'm putting this slide in particular was I wanted to point out the major of your expenses, your general fund expenditure, and that 85% being staff. So one of the things that I saw when I was looking through the budget was there's a lot of things going on in Austin and that are not set. A constitutional amendment. There's other things. Dr. Hollingsworth or Mr. Calden, you want to speak on how that affects the district?
Absolutely. So right now, as we go through building budgets, we have to go off of the known. We don't go off of what they're talking about in Austin. We have to, obviously keep that in mind so that we can adapt and meet whatever requirements they throw at us. But right now, as we do a budget, we go off of the known. We go off of the laws as they are when we're doing these budgets. And so we know there's a lot of talk in Austin about teacher pay increases. There's a lot of talk about additional funding, a lot of that with strings, whether it's private school or educational savings accounts or vouchers. We do know that there's all kinds of different talk down in Austin, but realistically, we pay attention to the things that are actually in law, because if we go around trying to forecast significant teacher pay increases without the revenue to do it, we're going to end upside down really fast.
DV, one of the things that I know you and I talked about before when we were going through the bond is I talked to you about how, and we talked about it earlier here, that when our local revenues increase, the state aid to us decreases. Okay. Mm-hmm. That is part of the reason that the state is actually sitting on a record budget surplus. And so through this particular legislative session, the budget surplus is projected by the state to be about $30 billion. And then in the rainy day fund, which has been established for a long time, there's another $30+ billion. And so the state of Texas, the legislature sits on about $62 billion in cash. And in that process, the state really did nothing in terms of changing funding to school districts. It essentially remained the same.
Yeah, I did see that there was gridlock. There was
Yeah.
absolute gridlock there. There was a bunch of bills being considered. There was a bunch of things being considered, and nothing got done there. Nothing, and that's disappointing. Now, one of the things that they talked about was that constitutional amendment going to vote, and it does some kind of homestead act, or it reduces further what you guys get, revenue that you guys get.
Yeah.
How if that passed, if that went through, what does that look like, Ryan?
Strangely enough, we've already built that into the budget for next year. We have built in, assuming that the homestead exemption. So homestead exemption essentially says that right now, $40,000 of the value of your house is not taxable for school tax purposes. If this election is approved in November, which we have no reason to believe it won't be, if it is approved in November, then the first 100,000 of your homestead would not be taxable for school tax purposes. And so we've gone ahead and built that into the budget. So to answer your question directly, if it's approved, it has no effect on us because we went ahead and looked at that preemptively, and we tried to go with the most conservative. So for us, the most conservative was, let's assume this passes. What does that do to our revenue? And let's go that way, because it is a little bit less than it would be if it doesn't pass. And
Right.
so we did draw our budget up, assuming that the $100,000 homestead exemption would be approved.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Hollingsworth, I got one more question, and then we'll get to the good things happen on in WISD, because I know you got to go. As the leader, as the one running the day-to-day and the leader of this district, did you propose any cuts? Was there things that you didn't go ahead and present this year to the school board that you really needed? What were kind of some of the things that you looked to scale back in? What did you direct your department to scale back in?
Yeah, I can give you a real specific one. We use a staffing efficiency program at our secondary level. It's called Cardonics, and what it does is it looks at our staffing levels, particularly at secondary. When I talk about secondary, I'm talking about junior high and high school, and it looks at those staffing levels because I'm an old high school principal. A high school or junior high, for that matter, master schedule is very complicated because most teachers teach 6 periods out of an 8-period schedule. And so they have what's called a PLC period, and they also have their own conference period. And then those 6 periods that they teach, this program looks to make sure that we're using our staff as efficiently as possible. And through that, we were actually able to realize a cut in staff by about 13 what we call FTEs, full-time teaching equivalencies. And by doing that, that allowed us to save some money. And we project that if we believe we'll hold that 13 FTEs, in fact, we haven't use them at this point. So what we'll do is we'll save that. It's about $1 million that we'll be able to place in the fund balance.
Excellent. That's
a great example.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you. So are they voting on this soon? I believe that it's coming at the end of the month. If it isn't happening, or if it hasn't happened yet, when is the voting on this? When will the board vote on all this?
Be next Monday. It'll be a 5:00 board meeting at our administration building on the 28th, Monday, August the 28th, and we'll adopt our budget for this current school year. Our fiscal year starts on September 1, so we'll have that adopted for a September 1 fiscal year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So bonds passed.
Yes,
a lot of growth, things going on.
Yeah.
Give me an update on what's going on WISD.
A lot, and it's super exciting. We're every opportunity I get to say thank you to the voters of Waxahachie ISD, I want to say thank you, because it's a big deal for our community and just the long-term greatness of this district, which is a partnership. But we are well underway on elementary number 10, which is located in the Saddlebrook neighborhood, which is on the way down to Ennis, and it is you can go out there and you can see the work. There's concrete being poured, and they are laying our electrical work and conduit for that. It's really cool, very exciting to see. The other thing that we're about to do is on August the 31st, we're going to have our groundbreaking ceremony at the new Wildman STEAM Academy, and that's located across Business 287 from Waxahachie High School on acreage that the district already owned for the purpose of building a future school. And the other thing we've done this week that caused quite we knew it would. There was a lot of stir online about is we have a survey out for the next couple of weeks to get people's ideas, things that they'd like to see in terms of a name for our new comprehensive high school number 2.
I saw that.
And I always remind folks, when we talk about a comprehensive high school, you're talking about one that competes in UIL and competes in band and has its own mascot and its own colors and all the things associated with a big high school. And so we've asked for that. And in the process, I'm also working with our team of 8, working with my 7 board members that I work for, my bosses. We've been exploring and looking at other high schools. We saw a brand new one that's being built by the same architect that we're working with. We saw one yesterday, and Mr. Calden was part of that as well. And so we're exploring and getting ideas and things we like, things we don't like about current high schools that are being built.
One of the things that get brought up, and this is the last thing before we close out, often online is about the traffic issues and it being dangerous. And, there's, and that always happens at the beginning of school. There's always some issues, but that seems to be a ongoing thing. Is that something that you're looking to address?
Always. And we're really grateful to have a really good relationship, first with the City of Waxahachie Police Department, and then also with Ellis County Sheriff's Department, with Texas DPS. We have Texas DPS officer who we work with regularly at our schools. And so we work with those folks to make sure that we're as safe as possible with our current buildings. And we also, are working with the North Texas Council on Governments for planning for roadway down near high school number 2. And we're working, we just had the city approved over the summer a new school zone that will be placed in front of Waxahachie High School on that access road. That's been long needed. And so there's a lot of things that we're continually looking at to make sure that we're keeping it as safe as possible. But it's a growing community, and you can drive around any growing community around the Metroplex, and they'll tell you that the traffic and safety is an ongoing struggle.
Well, I could talk to you forever, but I know you got to get to the game. So, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on this year and talking numbers and kind of crunching those things. And Dr. Hollingsworth, I always appreciate when you come on and talk about the things going on with WISD and talk with the people. The good thing is that WISD, those folks, whether it be the board members or your superintendent, is always accessible. If you have issues, talk to them. They are always open to talk to you and help you in any way they can. So they're always open to communication. So do just that. Dr. Hollingsworth, again, thank you so much. And Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, DV. Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.